Okay, next point he basically raises is about, free will and the knowledge of God. So I'm glad that at least he clarified it himself that, knowledge does not mean causation, right? So if Allah knows something or God knows something, does not mean that he's causing it. And then he brings up some other points that I will address. So let's kind of step back and first of all understand the Islamic view, the Islamic perspective around these things, and then we can see if it actually leads to a contradiction or not. So first of all, if you keep things simple and separate, there's a concept of knowledge of God. So God knows everything. Okay, if God doesn't know something, that is basically deficiency in its knowledge, and it negates the perfection of God. So I think that's quite straightforward. Now, that's one. Okay. Now, what he's trying to say is that, okay, if God knows everything and God is all powerful, how essentially what he's saying is, why would God allow certain things to happen which are not good? Well, then what does it mean for something to be not good? Again, we are looking at it from a very limited perspective, right? So if you're thinking of it like, hey, from a perspective of 1 minute, 1 hour, 10 hours, 1 day, 1 week, then yeah, you may say, hey, something is not good. But when you look at it from a longer perspective, the greater good, the overall objectives, then the way that you will look at the things will be totally different. So for example, somebody might say, hey, why are you, vaccinating a child? It's not good. Okay, now I hope that you would not take in the wrong direction. Just get the argument here. Why are you vaccinating a child? Okay, so if you're looking at it from just like 1 hour or 1 day or 1 week perspective, that okay, you're injecting, bacteria or unwanted substances into the body of a child. Well, you're not realizing that, hey, there's a greater good to be achieved with that. So similarly, we believe that everything that God does has a wisdom and has a greater good behind it. And there's tons and tons of examples. So even if, let's say, something evil happens, painful happens, there are a lot of opportunities around it. So, okay, first of all, when something evil happens, what happens, right? At the worst case, people's bodies are affected, or people are killed, or people feel some sort of torture. So, if people feel pain or torture, is that all bad? Or is it just a temporal effect that it's bad in that temporal sense, in that small sense of the world? Because if you understand Islamic perspective, that's very important to understand, to be consistent and to understand what's going on. So this is something that we discuss. So one of the things that I talk about with people is that, look, if I'm doing a workshop and you come to my workshop, you would expect that we would take care of you, we would have comfortable chairs, or we would have a environment or a temperature that's comfortable. We'd probably serve water or maybe even coffee or refreshments, because you're coming to an event that we are hosting. Now if I say, hey, you know what, we're gonna go and play soccer, or we'll be training, doing workout, and let's meet up at the gym, your expectation from me in terms of how much comfortable I would the environment would be different. So we have to understand the Islamic perspective of life. It's not a place that God has thrown as a banquet, that everything will be perfect, in the sense that there won't be any pain, there won't be any suffering, there won't be any challenges, there won't be any cheating. No, it's a complex environment in which you are tested, day in and day out, and you learn from your mistakes, and you develop and you improve. If someone does some wrong to another person, the one facing the wrong has a lesson for him or her to learn. If they are patient with that, they are rewarded. And in totality, which is basically including this world as well as the justice of the hereafter, everything will be balanced. So for example, let's say someone cheats me off of $100. Okay, in totality I will be recompensed for that $100. So for example, let's say I'm so stingy, I don't, or I just don't have that courage to spend $100 for the sake of God, right? So some people would take those $100 and spend on the poor people, and some people wouldn't do that. So some people, let's say, maybe if they are cheated, and in the totality of things, they may get the reward in the hereafter, just because they lost the $100 for some other reason and they were patient with the decree of Allah. So the point being that even if there's some sort of pain, there is an opportunity. First of all, there will be 100% full justice that will be established, looking at this world as well as the hereafter. Second thing, when pain or suffering happens, it's also an opportunity for other people to learn lessons and to see how they could take measures to prevent that from happening in the future, and how they can actually sacrifice their time, energy, wealth, and so on and so forth to help the people who have actually suffered some sort of harm. So the reason I was saying all this thing is, first realize that this world is not a place of comfort. It's not a resort that God has thrown for us to just enjoy. That's what paradise is. Here is a test, okay? And so that's one thing. Second thing is, whatever evil or pain reaches one, there is a wisdom behind it, and there's a greater good, and we have discussed some examples of that. Now the third thing is, look, from a perfection of God, no one can actually overpower God. So my free will is limited in a sense that I cannot overpower God. And this is something that we see, like, recently, I think last Friday, there was a horrible incident that happened in Germany, and someone committed a crime and killed people at a shisha place in Germany. So what happened, if you really look into it, some people died and some people did not. So the persons whose death was not written, even though from a statistical or scientific perspective had the equal amount of chances of being dead, was not harmed. Okay, so that's something very important to realize, that no one can overpower the will of God. Now, yes, and things like that. So from a perspective of free will, it does imply that horrific and horrible crimes will take place. But again, they cannot escape the mercy, they cannot escape the justice, they cannot escape the power of God. And if the people are not able to do that, there cannot be a fair test. So think about this. For example, someone may have hidden deep down in there that they would cheat other people. They would do anything it takes for them to make more money, for them to dominate others. And they may just not be doing that because they did not have that opportunity. So such a person would actually be tested and exposed when he or she has the opportunity to cheat, and has a expectation that he or she will not be caught. So this is what free will gives us, is that we are actually being tested to see how we will use the free will. Now, some people may then say, okay, this is like compulsion. Well, it's not compulsion. Actually, we understand from Islamic perspective that for you to be accountable for your actions, two things must exist. One is that you must have the knowledge and understanding of what is good and what is bad. What is it that Allah is pleased with, and what is it that Allah is not pleased with? Or what is it that Allah, so this body that we have, these eyes that we have, we can't say that, oh, it's mine, I can do whatever I want with it. No, it's an amana, it's a trust that is given to us by Allah, and He has given us the freedom to either use it in ways that Allah is pleased with, or to use it in ways that Allah is displeased with. So again, what I was trying to say is that for us to be accountable, two things must exist. One, I should be able to understand how God wants me to use these capacities and these capabilities. And second, I must have the ability to choose. Okay, so for example, if God wants me to pray standing, first of all, I need to know that this is what God wants me to do, and I need to have the mental capacity to understand that. And second, I need to have the physical ability to do that. If I don't have one of these two things, then I'm not accountable in general. Okay, so now going back to what this guy is talking about, and he's saying, okay, so he's saying, all right, so he talked about knowledge and perfection of God, and why does God not stop things? Well, so he's not seeing, again, if you take out hereafter, your perspective would be totally different. If you keep the hereafter in place, if you realize that the absolute success is the love of Allah and making it to paradise, then the parameters of success change. Then the parameters of what is good and what is bad change. So obviously he doesn't have that, so he's not speaking in that context. Okay, so that's second. And then third thing is that, okay, how can you be accountable? Well, again, you're only accountable for things that you are capable of doing. And God's knowledge has nothing to do with your being accountable or not. Okay, if God told you, for example, do this and don't do this, and He gave you the ability. If you chose to do the wrong thing, then you're accountable. But even if you make the wrong choice, even if you do the wrong thing, now there's another option. Either be arrogant and fight and transgress and deny the rights of God, or be humble and ask God for forgiveness. So it's quite simple like that. So I hope that makes sense. So I'll make another video for the next topic that he talks about.